Betmaker Show. This is the NFL trade predictions and regular season schedule analysis and preview for Friday, May 15th, 2020. And now, live from Las Vegas, the host of the Betmaker Show, Brian Blessing.
All right, folks, glad to be talking football with you. Brian Blessing and Bruce Marshall from the Gold Sheet. We're ready to rock and roll. So a quick summation. We've got a global pandemic. We have murder hornets. We have locusts in Africa. And overnight we had an earthquake about 200 miles from Las Vegas. Fortunately, I slept through that problem. I didn't know about that one. Hi, Bruce. Just another day.
Yeah, not much going on at all, I guess. Up in Reno, they probably could have felt this a little bit more than we could have, but the earthquake. But yeah, just a whole hum Friday and a whole hum week, I guess.
Yeah. So we're going to focus here on the NFL. Of course, the Gold Sheet's a great publication. We can't wait to dive back into football. We got the schedule, so a lot of cool things that we can dissect there, but all kinds of things. It's funny, the one topic before we officially let loose, Bruce gets up and starts chirping the Rams' new uniform. So I'm sitting here staring at the Rams' new uniform, and former Rams players. Bruce is like, former Rams players goes, no, that ain't a goat. With the ram horn, it looks more like a goat. Eric Dickerson says the stripes on the helmet looks like two bananas.
Yeah, Dickerson said the unis made him look soft, and I mean, it's not. I'll tell you, for those of us who were around in L.A. when they made the grand redesign of the uniforms back in 1973, and that was one of Carol Rosenblum's first things he did, and that was the uniforms that we became used to for most of the last 50 years, where they introduced the goldenrod really in the pants and yellow. And with the blue. Now, they made some twists on that and some variations in St. Louis, and it went more to a navy blue instead of a royal blue. But this design was still pretty sharp. But the design doesn't look good. And the colors, they've got this all-white uniform that's not even white. It's sort of an off-white color. Not good. Not good. I'm not in favor of it. And I like some of the other new uniforms these other teams have had this year. Not the Rams, though. So they're getting a lot of things wrong in LA these days, so this is just another one.
And again, the crazy things that we're dealing with here, and then you get Giants cornerback DeAndre Baker and Seahawks cornerback Quentin Dunbar. They're looking for him because they went to a party in Miami or Miramar, Florida, and an argument ensued. So I guess, Bruce, I mean, what else would you do when an argument ensues? Just say to your friend, go get a semi-automatic firearm and let's rob everybody. They took $11,000 in cash, $18,000 Rolex, $25,000, never heard of this, a Hublot watch, from the partygoers. I mean, and these are players of note. The one kid's a first-round draft pick in his second year.
Yeah, well, be careful to invite these guys to your party, I guess. But I guess this is taking it to an extreme. Guys are getting so bored they're resorting to this stuff with no football. But no, that's no good. And this is everybody's going a bit stir crazy right now, and these football players too. Although tentatively, the NFL seems to be sort of on course here. So here we are mid-May. Some of the offseason stuff has been curtailed, but looking into the summer, so far, so good. So we'll just have to see how it goes. But no good for these guys. That's certainly not good.
And one more from the OK department. Mike Tomlin. These guys want to get back on the field because all these stories keep coming out. James Harrison gets fined $75,000 his days with the Steelers, and Mike Tomlin reportedly walked up, handed him a $75,000 cash-filled envelope to cover the fine. Man alive, let's get back to football.
Yeah, I mean, it is silly season when we get all of this stuff here. And, the Tomlin situation, there's just another one. But this is the stuff we're sort of getting, these bits and pieces of these odd news things coming out. And in an off season where, I mean, teams introducing new uniforms is a big news item. We need to get back to some normalcy pretty soon. So hopefully we will.
And in terms of that, we've got the schedule. We know who's going where and when. And at least it's been kind of a fun week, since the schedule came out, to at least get to the point, Bud, where, we're talking about things that we've been talking about here in this podcast, but it's to get back to a routine. It would be to sit there and look and say, well, the Rams better win that first game against Dallas because then they got to fly cross country to play a breakfast football game at Philly. And I would think they'd probably stay on the East Coast instead of flying back home to then fly cross country to play another breakfast football game in Buffalo. Then McVay comes out and he goes, yeah, that's what we're looking at. Well, good luck finding a place where you can plop down and accomplish all that. It all sounds great, but it's nice to at least start employing, I don't know, would it be the skill set we have? Is that a fair way of doing it?
That's as good as any, I think. And we can start to look at stuff like that. And hopefully it'll be normal enough to do, but a little bit more of a deep dive into the schedule. And we take a look at some of the other things that are coming up. I thought it was interesting in New England's case where the Patriots are actually going to have back-to-back games in LA, assuming there are games in LA and assuming this new stadium will get used this year. But in early December, the Patriots are out for games against the Chargers and Rams. This latter is a Thursday night game, but that's back-to-back games in the same stadium on the road, which is kind of rare. We may have had one at MetLife last year, but I'm not sure the visiting team stayed there the whole week between games. But that's how the Patriots will do it. You see that more. You saw that more in the NBA this year when teams coming into LA, they would play the Lakers and Clippers in back-to-back games, so they saved themselves one road trip. Sean McVay, though, was a little bit concerned because the Patriots will be in town that week before the Rams actually are, because they're on the road the game previous to the Thursday night game. So some of those interesting things in the schedule we've been able to take a look at more in the last week.
It's funny. During my radio show during the week, I don't know. It's funny. Close your eyes and tried to paint a picture. Did you see the video on the internet of, I guess it was in Japan, where they put, I don't know what it was, like night glow paint or whatever on a guy's hand, and then they were in a restaurant, and how inside a half an hour, then they turned the lights off, and everybody in the place was covered with just the way the thing can spread. I guess it was realistic, but you're thinking of a football game, and Patrick Mahomes back to pass, scramble, steps up in the pocket, avoids pressure, comes running up the middle. All of a sudden, the safety comes up, hits him, ball's loose. It's on the carpet. 8 guys dive on a pile, and they're in there fighting away for it. This is what hey, that's great. That's a football play. But that football play, depending where we sit in 4 months, there's 8, 9 guys at the bottom of a pile. One guy's got this thing. I got news for you. 9 guys got this thing.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll all be wearing a mask when they play football, too. That would be something to see. Raider fans all wear masks in the stadium. If anybody shows up
I knew you were going to go there.
If Allegiant Stadium does. But, that's the thing. Right now, I don't even think, in a place like L.A. they'd even let them play a football game, much less have people in the stands. Now, in September, that might change some, but
I wouldn't hold my breath on the California front.
I wouldn't either. There was one interesting note from Michigan Governor Whitmer, who our friends who put this together are very familiar with. She did happen to say this week she envisioned there could be football this fall, but not with full stadiums. Well, that's in Detroit, Michigan State, and places like that. Now, at least that's a good sign that there's at least a mission. Okay, we could have football games this fall, even if I think fans would take that trade in a minute right now. Okay, we play them. If there's not many fans in the stands, fine, but at least we play them. So at least if Michigan seems to think there might be games in the fall, I think that's a pretty good indication there will be. I am, though, keeping an eye, though, on the schedule here. And there are some teams, and the California teams in particular, listen, they might not be able to play some of these home games early in the season.
Well, they're talking about the Rams and the Chargers. Vegas has come up. I would envision Arizona would likely be included in that scenario. Arizona and Florida, their governors have said, yeah, pro sports, come on.
Yeah.
So, I know you're looking to roll out a brand new stadium, but at some point, you got to start making plans, and logistics and the clock matters.
Yes, it does. And I've heard some of that. Vegas, Phoenix, Salt Lake City, even Utah's got a stadium that could be used there if they needed to, which I think they'd be able to. So that's the other thing, and why I'm a little reluctant to jump onto some of these recommendations. I always would be anyway, this in May for games that are played 4 months hence. But some of these you're not even sure about the venues and where they're going to be playing. So you keep that in mind. Some of these venues look like, and I would think New Jersey would probably be in the same boat right now, and that's where the Giants and Jets play. So we've got to keep an eye on all that as well.
And to that end, obviously, when we get to college football, we have our own college football segment at the moment. It's NFL related, but it does impact the NFL in terms of prospects for the upcoming year. But the college football season is mightily in doubt. I mean, we saw California where, basically we've got Fresno State, San Diego State, and many other schools saying no students at the school in the fall. Well, how do you play football if there are no students at the school? And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. And, I guess you could, I wonder if the online thing will satisfy the thing where the school is going on, but they're not on campus there. Listen, Oregon's governor's already said no gatherings through September. So you'd figure that would be an issue. One quick thing about the colleges, though, there isn't one central, the NCAA wouldn't pull the levers on this. College football exists really with each conference having its own commissioner, who's its own Roger Goodell, and it's Greg Sankey in the SEC, and it's whoever Scott in the Pac-12. They make up the decision. So I'm not sure there's going to be a uniform response in college football like there would be in the NFL, where if it's a go, it's a go. Colleges have a lot more hoops to jump through. We'll pick up that more a little bit later on.
Betmaker, let's make some money tonight.
For outstanding information and special offerings and promotions, we invite you and encourage you to sign up for our newsletter today simply by going to the website at betmaker.com. Let me just throw a blanket one at you, Bruce, whatever we are. I'm telling you, time, is that not the oddest thing in this whole thing? Is time. And it's the mental thing that goes on where, I don't know if during the night, whether people, it is like kind of a topic that came up this week. Some friends, they're not sleeping good. They just feel odd, lethargic. Some of my friends say, yeah, you're getting old. It's called you're getting old. Or the other part of it is, your routine is just so altered that it becomes a mental thing, a between the ears thing. And time is just an odd thing, whether people sleep good at night, overnight, through the night. And you lose track. I can sleep a little later tomorrow because everybody's routine and itineraries aren't as compact as they normally are. It's all about routines that I think it's a between the ears thing, and how this is going to play itself out for athletes. And we're talking football here, but NASCAR's returning, golf's returning, more individualistic thing. I mean, NASCAR, yes, is a team thing, but I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the athletes actually perform, because everybody's routine is just all fakakta.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I feel like I'm in the summer vacation in fourth grade, really, the last, couple months here. I mean, you just have to get used to something, and the urgency of stuff is different.
I can relate because, I mean, relatively speaking, I've got a fourth grade education.
Well, me too. So, but there's no baseball on the radio, at least. So, I mean, that's kept me going in fourth grade. Also, this weekend, there is a German soccer starting overseas. And normally we wouldn't talk about European soccer too much, but keep an eye on.
Say it for me. I haven't heard you say something good in a long time. Do you want to give me the fancy? You want to say Bundesliga? You want to say something for me?
Sure. Bundesliga begins this weekend, and no, but no fans in the stands. But they are Many of the leagues in Europe are in Serie A and Italy and Liga in España. They're all thinking about getting back here at some point in the next month. So they're going to be watching the Bundesliga very carefully here. No fans in the stands at the start, but they are at least going to have matches this weekend and pick up where they left off in early March. So watch that as well. So we're seeing some slow rollouts here, and those things you mentioned about NASCAR, the golf will be picking up again soon, and Bundesliga over in Germany. So a little bit is good. It's better than nothing, and we'll just keep an eye on how these things progress in the next couple of weeks.
As Bruce can attest, and those of you that have listened to this podcast, I can be wrong with the best of them. But I also have my moments. And throughout this damn thing, but I've got the ability to, I'm not saying I'm Kreskin, but I got the ability to see the forest through the trees and kind of look down the road. And I'm telling you, Bruce, I got the sports betting ticket in my wallet from March 13th. It's like the Twilight episode with Burgess Meredith. It's like the clock broke right there. But I'm telling you, early on when this thing first started, I mean, weeks and weeks, send these guys to Iceland. I said Greenland. I think that was, you got to send these guys to a remote location. 2 weeks later, well, whatever. Remember, we start to send these guys to remote locations, and all the other tentacles and things that are on the back end of this, all of this that's going to be problematic. But I'll tell you, the one I've been talking about for about 5 weeks, and it finally happened. I said, this is all well and good. I said, but these players are going to have to sign off. Players associations, players are going to have to sign off on a thing. Yes, I'm going into harm's way, blah, 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 and know the risks. But what? And I'm specific to hockey, and I'm saying, well, what if? And I know it's a bad example because he's been talking about how excited he'd be to get back. But for argument's sake, if a guy like Sidney Crosby said, yeah, great, no thanks, I'm not doing it. It's easy for us to move these guys around like chess pieces. Yeah, leave your family in the middle of a pandemic, go somewhere, be isolated for 4 weeks and play your sport. Yes, it's their job. But there are going to be guys that go, no. And good luck to any team from a PR perspective trying to, hit some guy with a breach of contract suit, and win that battle in court and a PR battle. Say, wait a minute, you want the guy to abandon his family, guy just had a baby, leave his family behind, go somewhere for 4 months. Anyway, long-winded story. The pitcher Snell for the Rays said exactly that. Okay, so he's the Rudy Gobert of I don't want to do this. And honestly, Bruce, I think in every one of these sports, you're going to find guys that are going to say, yeah, there's a lot of money on the line, but it ain't about the money. I ain't going.
Yeah, definitely. And baseball at this moment is thinking, early July. And at the moment, they're thinking they can be at their venues playing, and it wouldn't have to be all in one centralized spot, although that's still an option for them. But you're right. You hit the nail on the head there. The PR of it, it's going to be hard to force a guy who doesn't want to play to do this here. So we'll just have
good luck winning that court battle.
Yeah, it's going to be very tough. And the other thing, we are, mid-May right now, and time is moving. All of a sudden, it seems to be moving. The first couple of weeks of this thing seem to really drag at the end of March. But we're getting to the point where we're going to have to start figuring out some things, if these leagues are really going to get going again. Baseball has given us a tentative plan. We know the NFL is still okay with it, and they've got their normal timeline. They'll have to make some sort of an announcement in preseason at some point pretty soon. Will there be any football players that do what Blake Stell did? There's your other half to what you're talking about there. So that remains to be seen. So we'll just have to see. Where it goes. But at some point within the next month, and this would go for the NBA and NHL too, I think they're going to have to get around to putting something more concrete into place. And if they don't, they're just going to have to wait until later in the fall to start up anew. So the time is running here. And again, it goes back to how this, at least timing wise, worked out for the NFL. It worked out okay as it could be for the NFL, at least compared to the other sports.
And the crazy thing, I had seen this, and I would imagine that a lot of these teams are doing it. The Bills quarterback, Josh Allen, lives in California, and he was able to get two of the rookie wide receivers they drafted who lived in California. So they were kind of there. one of the veteran wide receivers, John Brown, went there to kind of coach the kids up. And they had this, impromptu workout, which is beneficial for any, rookie wide receiver. Try to get a feel for the speed of what they want them to do and get a relationship with your quarterback. So I think these guys are trying to do what they can do from an impromptu perspective. But basically what these players are doing around the NFL, Bruce, you're having virtual team meetings and guys trying to, learn a playbook. It's one thing, I guess, when you're sitting here looking at a football team, whatever it is, 50, what is it? What is it these days? It was 53, but I think is it 55 now that the two practice squad guys can?
Yeah, I think they've upped it just a little. Yep.
But to have 55 guys be on the same page and come in, training camps are always important. But boy, oh boy, the ones that handle the preparation like this well are really going to get a running start. So there are going to be teams and organizations that handle this well and some that just puke.
Yeah, and they've all had to sort of do this on the fly because the formalized off-season workouts they nixed. So it's sort of up to the guys to do what they can. The other interesting thing is in the old back in, like say in the 60s and into the 70s, I mean, you didn't have all these the OTAs and off-season.
Oh no, they went to camp to get in shape.
Get in shape, and they would also have 6 preseason games back then.
Oh God, remember that?
Yeah, and so they use that sort of the games to sort of work their way into form. Now that's been cut to 4, and this year we don't even know if they're going to have that. So
would that be the only good thing that came out of a pandemic? Well, the preseason games are gone. But I know you. But from a betting perspective, there are opportunities in preseason. But,
sure,
but in terms of the real, that's selfishly for us.
But
that's great. But it's opportunities. So how many teams have their season derailed with that all of a sudden the injury bug hits and their season's screwed before they ever take the field in the opener?
And that's the thing about this season. If you don't have as much preseason, if we have any preseason this year, you haven't had the off-season stuff.
So injuries.
That could limit the injuries some. But I mean, maybe the play might be a little bit different, and it might be a little bit. The only thing is that most of these teams are in the same boat, at least. So I'm not sure how noticeable it will be, but it is a different dynamic for these teams getting ready. There's a chance if we do get to regular season games in September, they may have had an abbreviated training camp with little or no preseason, and we just hit the ground running with the games. Now, college football has done that forever. There's no preseason in college football. They kick off the first game. That's the first you see of the team. So maybe we've always made too much of it, but it is a different dynamic than what we've been used to watching pro football for the last half century or more.
But the other thing, and these will be topics that we will really start to dive into, and hopefully, again, we're going to have a much better indicator as many of the states are slowly starting to transition back to whatever you want to call it, with the reopenings on a smaller scale. And, we hope we get the good news. But from our perspective, and we'll really just dive into these, I'd say next week, maybe this is what we do. We'll go through week 1. And we kind of, just glossed over it a little bit. But week 1 numbers are up, and odds to win the MVP are up. Futures are up. We've actually got betting numbers that we can start to dissect and see what the betting public's thinking with openers and line movement, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of these went, as soon as we got the first week matchups, they had, numbers up, and there's some real numbers you can bet now. We might be going into it a little bit more blind than we were in the past, but does it really, it's not like we get all the picks right anyway. I mean, so I'm not sure, on the end result from our end, it's going to make much difference. It's still the same teams. We know the players, we know their trends, we know the series histories and all of that. So it is good that we've at least got some numbers, and there's a little bit of movement on a couple of these already. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I saw the Bills were 6.5 to the Jets. That's down to 6, a division game. You look at, some of these other games that are out there. I think you could see some high flying, high scoring games. Looking at totals starting to move a little bit. So it, give you a little indicator. How about Indy laying 6.5 on the road at Jacksonville? Jacksonville's home opener catching 6.5. That's one, because that's the one thing we should say. The odds makers do a terrific job in all sports for the most part. But the NFL is one of these deals. Like college football, sometimes those adjustments go into week 2, 3, sometimes even week 4, because you're really just getting a first look at them because they show up and play. And we get a taste of it with preseason football. But in the NFL, basically, Bruce, the adjustments are made by week 2.
Yes.
Week 3, maybe a handful of teams like a rookie quarterback, okay, he showed you a lot in week 2. He learned from week 1. But for the most part, power ratings are locked in by week 2.
Yeah, and I think these week 1 numbers that we see, these are going to look pretty similar when we get into September for most all these. So, I mean, you're right. They'll start jumping a little bit more after week 1. Unless even preseason it's like its own entity right now, and it doesn't impact these regular season numbers too much unless there's a major injury or two, especially a quarterback that could change some things. But by and large, I mean, the numbers that we see right now for week 1 here in mid-May are going to look pretty similar when we get into September. I did notice, and speaking about the little moves we've seen thus far, that Houston-Kansas City game, 9s and 9.5s we saw. That's the opener that Thursday. It's now looks like a solid 10.
Yeah.
At Kansas City a little bit. But those are the sort of moves we'll see for week 1, just these smaller moves right now. And I think these will look pretty similar when we get into the first week of September, these prices.
The funny thing is that you'd look at something and say, oh, it's understandable. You made the Chiefs 9.5. And, people remember what they saw last. And, this high-flying Kansas City offense. And you sit there and you look at that and go, oh, that's kind of understandable. You think, oh, the general public. Well, wait a minute. Honestly, the numbers that are up now, general public's not betting this stuff. This is sharp money.
Yeah. And, a lot of people, there's not as many outlets yet. I mean, certainly in Nevada, if you don't have a mobile app, you haven't been able to bet anything. And New Jersey, the same way. These the brick and mortar establishments are closed. Now everybody has mobile or plays offshore. If you do, then you have options. But I mean, the market has had to be a little bit slower just because none of the brick and mortars are open, at least not yet.
Well, and let's wrap it up with this. And I think we, as the days move forward here, we're going to really start diving into specifics. But I think the numbers are going to be absolutely astronomical. We know there's offshore, all the opportunities for people to go and bet. But from the brick and mortar perspective you speak of, Bruce, the percentage of wagering handle on mobile apps and technology moving forward, it was trending that way. There is a convenience aspect of it. The majority of it, I think, was the ability, and I'd say to anybody that takes the time to get a mobile app is crazy not to get 3 of them, in that an era that was long gone is now back, and that's the ability to get the best number. So you're just giving yourself more of those options. But it's going to be the mindset of people say, I'm going to put my mask on and I'm going to go in and I'm going to fund my account. And I'm going to go home and I'm going to be playing sports on my app. I'd much rather go to, in the short term, I'd much rather go to a sports book once than, 7 days a week and be going in there. Because just the between the ears and the mindset of people, I'll wrap it up with this, Bruce. I talk a good game. Come on now, let's wear a mask. Let's get on with it. Let's get out there. Look at the numbers. I think they're inflated and the fear and the media and all this nonsense. But they beat you down, Bruce. I went to the grocery store. My wife the other day said, I'm going. I said, okay, I'll go. So I went with her. And it literally was, I put the mask on to, get gas, just a handful of places, on and off. And I went with her, and I'm telling you, it was 45 minutes in the grocery store. It was the first time I put the damn thing on for a long time. I'm telling you, Bruce, I was crawling in my skin. And even with the damn thing on, people are walking up to you, and you're looking at them like they're radioactive. What's going on between our ears. And I talked a good game. I mean, I'm like, we got to get back. We got to fight. We got to start living our lives. What's this going to look like, a year from now? So it all sounds great, but then you go out and you actually deal with the public. We have to mentally get over this thing too.
Yeah, and I mean, there are various institutions we talked about. Colleges have got a big change coming, a comeuppance maybe coming down the road. Commercial real estate. There's so many things that are going to change as it relates to this sports wagering and the legalized bookmaking in the states. Those states that do not yet have mobile wagering, and there's several of them that have passed and actually have, are taking sports bets, but they don't have the mobile component yet. Their numbers are going to be way, way down from what they thought they were going to be. And this should at least spur those states on to saying, you know what, we better make provisions for mobile, or we're just not going to see the revenue from this stuff. And hopefully we'll get back to some sort of normal by later in the year. But those states that don't have the mobile, we knew that before, but it's really going to be hammered home now. And I would expect some movement on those fronts before the end of the year, because obviously, like you say, people would rather, if you don't have to go out anymore, you can do it from home, do it that way. And sports betting certainly is in that category.
All right. Well, I'll say this. I miss you. I haven't seen you in over a couple of months, but it's wonderful to hear your dulcet tones. So we've got that, but that's the craziest damn thing, is just not seeing the people that are in your circle. So we look forward to that day, but at least we get to convene here every week, and it's always great fun. Bruce Marshall from the Gold Sheet. I'm Brian Blessing. Have a great day, everybody.
Betmaker, let's make some money tonight.
Well, that's the Betmaker Show for now. We publish multiple times each week. We'd like to thank you for listening, and if you liked what you heard, please take a moment to leave a rating and review, or subscribe to our show feed, or share our show with a friend or two and help us grow the show. We very much appreciate it. Visit us on the web at betmaker.com, and reminder to sign up for the newsletter. Thanks to our engineer, Darren Vandermolen, and producer, Mike Gallivan. The Betmaker Show is a production of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated. Betmaker is a registered trademark. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this content without the express written consent of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated is strictly prohibited.
The handicapping and sports odds information contained on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Please confirm the wagering regulations in your jurisdiction, as they vary from state to state, province to province, and country to country. Using this information to contravene any law or statute is prohibited. The podcast is not associated with, nor is it endorsed by any professional or collegiate league, association, or team. This podcast does not target and is not intended for an audience under the age of 18. If you think that you have a gambling addiction, stop this podcast now and please seek help.
Gambling and betting on sports is a form of entertainment and should be about having a good time. But when done excessively, it may negatively affect other areas of a person's life, such as their physical and mental health, school or work performance, finances, and or interpersonal relationships. At betmaker.com and the Betmaker Show, we're concerned about the addiction that gambling may cause, and for this reason, we encourage everyone to practice responsible gambling. An approach to gambling that helps you ensure that it remains an enjoyable activity. Here are the main principles of responsible gambling. Don't think of gambling as a way to make money. Always gamble with money that you can afford to lose. Set limits and stick to them. Never chase losses. Don't gamble when you're depressed or upset, and create a healthy balance. Always be aware of how much time you spend gambling or thinking about gambling. And do not allow gambling to cause you to miss out on time with family and friends or time spent on other activities you enjoy. By following these guidelines, gambling can be a good time and great entertainment. If you feel at any time that your gambling is taking away from important areas of your life, is causing you stress or depression, or is leading to financial losses that are beyond your control, please reach out for help. Learn more at responsiblegambling.org.